Okay, Boxing Fanatics, welcome to the fourth episode of the Boxing Fanatics podcast. Today, I am joined once again by Mr. Steve Wellings, online editor at Boxing News Magazine. Steve, it's fair to say it's quite an exciting time for boxing. And on February 22nd, some people are saying this is possibly the best card ever. And I think it's only right we start off with, well, the main event. Artur Beterbiev versus Dmitry Bivol. First time round, an amazing fight between two high-level operators. Some people said it ended in a bit of controversy. Whatever the case, we get to see it all over again. Just want to get your initial thoughts on the rematch.
Yeah, I'm pleased that they've made the rematch. Obviously, after that first fight, we needed to sort it out and go back at it again. They call it the last crescendo, but if Bivol wins, are they going to have a trilogy? So I'm not really sure why they've titled it that for. To maybe it's set up for Beterbiev to win. I don't know, but a lot of people will say that Beterbiev was forced in the fight, so without him, there wouldn't have been a fight. But Bivol pushed him very close. We want to see the best fight in the best. So yeah, let's get it on. And thankfully. Beterbiev's managed to stay fit, which seems to be a problem lately. So they turned it around nice and quickly. I think it was October, the first one. So if he wins, then they'll sail off into the sunset. If Bivol wins, it won't be the last crescendo.
That's a very good point, to be fair. It's a very good point. They are almost assuming like this is the last time these guys meet, but like you said, if Bivol wins and there is a possibility, then yeah, it's gonna be we're gonna have a trilogy on our hands basically. Just touching on the fight briefly, what's your opinion on the first fight? I mean, I remember watching it and thinking at the end, I didn't think it was a robbery at all. I mean, I thought it was just a very close fight between two high level guys, and I wasn't too upset if it went either way. To be honest, I thought Beterbiev last time round definitely pushed the action more, probably landed the harder shots. Um, Came forward, Bivol really struggled to push him back, but then Bivol had these nice kind of flurries, sometimes towards the end of the round, showcasing some good hand speed. Just touching on the first fight, what did you make on the first fight?
Yeah, I think what you said is fair there. I mean, I can't remember the exact details of it, but it was a high level chess match as we expected to, conflicting styles, very skilled operators. And sometimes it's down to the judges. I know that you're not supposed to say, oh, it's what they like, but these are human beings at the end of the day. You're going to be sit there, you could be influenced by the crowd or lack thereof. You could look at a guy who's coming forward and prefer what he does, the guy on the back foot, maybe. I don't think it was a robbery by any stretch. And at the end, I thought that Serbia was just a narrow, fair winner. I was talking to Dan Morley, who's a pro boxer actually, and he was telling me that he was ringside, and you could just hear the punches from Beterbiev. You could hear those thuds, those harder shots, and then that could influence you. You know, the guy who's punching harder, he's doing the more damage. You could look at Bivol's face as well at the end. There's all sorts of different factors, but in those kind of fights, you always expect Dan guys like Beterbiev to come out on top because they're forcing the action, they're forcing the pace. He took over in the last three rounds. Bivol, it was increasingly his counter punching, his moving became running a little bit more, which is obviously natural. He's going to get tired. That's going to happen. And Beterbiev just forced it home. And I think it's his fight to lose in the rematch. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I think it's going to be quite a similar fight.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like you said, Beterbiev did come forward and he did force the action. And yes, it's quite hard to sometimes score a fight for the guy who's always kind of on the back foot. I don't think anyone's going to argue that, Beterbiev is the bigger puncher, is the stronger guy in there. And for pretty much the whole fight, he was coming forwards and he was, yeah, pushing Bivol back. Bivol, I can't remember too many times he was able to push Beterbiev back. I'm thinking about when Bivol fought Canelo Alvarez, and what I really like about Bivol in that fight is that he was able to push Canelo back, and he had Canelo on the ropes and he was unloading. I don't really remember many times he'd done that against Beterbiev, but obviously, Beterbiev is a much bigger man than Canelo, definitely physically stronger, more powerful. Some might even say even more skilled. He's obviously got, some people forget about Beterbiev's actually Olympic pedigree. So yeah, I mean, I guess if we're talking about this fight, then is it fair to say that Bivol, in order to come out victorious and for there to be no controversy, does he need to kind of hold his feet a bit more, potentially put Beterbiev on the ropes, just let his hands go a little bit more, and I guess maybe even hurt Beterbiev?
Yeah, I think he has to because you mentioned the Canelo fight there, and I thought he was excellent in the Canelo fight. That was a scandalous scoring. I thought he won the fight 10-2. He was superb, but as you mentioned there, he was against obviously a skillful, heavy-handed, experienced guy like Canelo, but ultimately a much smaller guy, and they badly misjudged that. Writing off Beterbiev as a slugger, as you mentioned there, Dan, is a mistake because he's not a slugger at all. He's very skilled guy, throws a lot of variety of punches, works everything behind the jab. And you can't just say, people who say things like, "Oh, Beterbiev, he was coming forward, etc." You can't base it off their previous performances or previous things. And say, "Oh, Beterbiev knocks everybody out, so therefore he didn't knock Bivol out, so therefore Bivol won the fight." We can't make those assumptions. We have to judge it off what we saw. And in this case, I think Bivol, sorry, is going to have to stand his ground. He's just going to have to for longer periods, especially late in the fight, to show that he's not running, to show the judges that he's standing in there and he's happy to trade. And I remember David Benavidez doing an interview actually. I think it was Benavidez saying that he'd sparred with Bivol, and he said he's very sort of rote in his approach, but he's very consistent. If he starts to get the better of him, then he will bite down on his gum shield and fight back with you. So I think in answer to your question, he did this a bit early on, but down the stretch, he's going to have to find a way, I think, to stand with Beterbiev and push him back on the ropes. I'm not really sure whether he can do that, and that's not me saying that Bivol's not a great fighter, but I'm just not sure anybody can do that against the prime Beterbiev.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, Bivol, for all his talent, he hasn't got a lot of knockouts on his resume. And I don't know if that's because he's just a little bit content to kind of go the 12 rounds and just outbox anyone, or
Yeah.
is there a lack of power there? It's hard to say. I mean, with Beterbiev though, to be fair, he has been hurt in previous fights. I think was it Callum Johnston who knocked him down? And
Yeah. Callum Johnson did knock him down in the second round with a left hook that he didn't see coming, but Johnson is a massive puncher, and Beterbiev absolutely walked onto that. He was dropped early in his career as well by a guy called Jeff Page. It was like a sort of off-balance jab kind of knockdown. So you can get to him. I think Bivol does punch hard enough, but Beterbiev's just got an iron chin. But Bivol is one of these guys who I think that he's happy to keep his power in the locker. When I first saw his breakout performance against Sullivan Barrera, which was back in 2018, 2017 now, which was ages ago. But he did everything that night. He broke Barrera down to the body, boxed him behind the jab, was absolutely lovely on the counter punches. And then he just sealed it off with a kiss in the 12th round and just knocked Barrera out. And I thought, wow, this guy's amazing. And then he had about, what, 8 or 9 decision wins in a row because he's just from that kind of Eastern European school, I think, that Cuban, Soviet kind of mentality of just, do what you need to do, outbox them, close them down, and don't grab those weapons unless you need to, which obviously in his last fight before Beterbiev against Zinad, he kind of had the bit between his teeth there, didn't he? After that, he had a bit of a lackluster performance against Lyndon Arthur, and he said Zinad has sort of riled him up a bit. He was a bit of a chatterbox, and you saw like the devil in Bivol that night with him throwing the punches and planting his feet. So I think he's got that aggression, but he probably knows against Beterbiev he needs to just box safe.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was lovely to see against Zinad, to be fair. It was just great to just see him, yeah, just let loose a little bit and just go for it. I mean, I think the problem here with Bivol though, for the fight, I think we all agree he needs to stand his ground more, but surely that's gonna just benefit Beterbiev. I mean, that's what Beterbiev wants, surely. I mean, I don't think Bivol is gonna beat Beterbiev in a shootout. Let's say, Beterbiev's the harder puncher, so it's gonna be interesting how Bivol kind of goes about it. Is it a case of hold his feet for a few seconds, I don't know, let off a combination and then kind of move again? Is it kind of like working in spurts a little bit? And yeah, your previous point about Beterbiev, a skill. I mean, I love the way Beterbiev closes off the ring. I mean, he's got to be one of the best at that. The way he closes the ring makes it small for his opponent. It's extremely difficult for anyone to survive that for 12 rounds. Steve, who do you think? This is a bit of, I guess, a question where people who don't watch boxing probably find it a bit strange. But who do you think? Who does the boxing establishment want to win this fight? Do you think?
It's an interesting question, actually. I'm not really sure because Beterbiev's surely near the end now. He's 40 years of age. He has a lot of problems. There's obviously sort of issues following him around in the background. People have made accusations about him in the past. I know he trains ferociously hard, which is one of the reasons they say that he gets so many injuries all the time, especially wrist injuries and knee injuries and mobility. So he's not going to go on forever. you know what? I don't think the boxing establishment cares enough about these two. That's the blunt answer. I mean, the hardcore fans like me and you love this type of stuff. Turkey loves getting involved in it, but I wonder whether I'm not going to say these two are the cheap option, but they're the kind of unknown option. They don't sell fights with big hype, because of the obviously there's the language barrier. They're not hype men. They're guys who do their business in the ring. I don't think the boxing establishment or the casual market that they're always trying to bring in is actually too bothered about these guys. It's also who love this undisputed things. They're not bothered about Bivol. They want to see guys like Tank and Canelo and oh
Mm.
God, I can't even say it, you know what I mean? But Ben and Eubank and people like that. So the hardcore, seriously though, the hardcores, we want to watch this, but the establishment, I don't think the establishment are that bothered. I think they'll just watch it, say, yeah, great fight, off you go, lads.
I mean, that is a good point. To be fair, he's definitely a boxing purist, but a fight for the boxing purist for sure. Like you said, neither of them are cash cows. Cash cows, to be fair. It's not
Yeah.
like when we saw Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk. I remember that press conference, and it felt like everyone wanted Fury to win because obviously he was the bigger name than Usyk, and everyone would benefit more if Fury won and he would fight AJ. But here, like you said, it's true. These are both, let's face it, two Russian guys, two guys with not the most charisma in the world, it's fair to say. They're just two exceptional fighters. I did find it curious though that Turkey, after the fight, I was watching an interview and he was like, he kind of implied that he thought Bivol won, which was kind of interesting because I think if he was a bit more objective, he could have said, "Oh, it was a close fight between two of the best boxers in the world. It could have gone either way." But he almost implied that Bivol deserved the nod. Any case, Beterbiev is going in from what I'm seeing in Sky Sports as a slight favorite. Do you think that's probably right that he's the slight favorite going into the rematch?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair. But yeah, going by the first fight, and I'd say he's the favourite, and it's down to Bivol to make the changes really. And I'm not sure whether he can. Not that he's not an excellent boxer, but I just don't think he can do enough of what he needs to do, and rely on Beterbiev having a kind of off night or a sluggish start or something that he can get over the line. And I for a long time thought that Bivol would beat Beterbiev, and then I kind of swayed as they got close. You see one, you think, oh yeah, he'll win. And you see the other one, and then I kind of was thinking right up until the end, I'll go with Beterbiev in the first one, and a lot of people saying that he's going to stop Bivol. But the first fight went pretty much how I expected. And as for the second one, and as for your point on Turkey as well, just to say about that, he obviously is not a neutral entity. He has his favourites as much as anybody else, and everybody's seeking his approval, his thumbs up or thumbs down on things. He's very vocal on things after the fight. He's at ringside. Oh, what's Turkey think about this, that, and the other? Did he have the right winner? He's the promoter, he's the money man, he's the opinion guy as well. He has his favourites, and he knows who he wants to do well. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, I think Beterbiev, yeah, I think he is the rightful favorite. I think Bivol is the one that does need to make more changes in order to emerge victorious. I think that's fair. If we just move past this fight, so obviously we know if Bivol wins, then it's probably going to be a trilogy. But what else is up for grabs here, would you say? I mean, Beterbiev, I think he fought as a heavyweight in the Olympics, didn't he? So he basically was a cruiserweight before, and I'm sure he weighs quite a lot anyway. I'm sure he wouldn't be an undersized cruiserweight. Um, do you think there's a possibility that, I don't know, let's say if Beterbiev wins, do you reckon there's a possibility that he'll move up to cruiserweight? I think he has actually mentioned it. Bivol probably not as big, but then I wouldn't say he'd be undersized either. So what else is up for grabs, would you say, besides cementing the winner cementing themselves as the best light heavyweight in the world?
I think that I'm not going to say that David Benavidez is like a big prize. These are the guys at the top, and he's looking up at them. But I think, given his rise, and especially after the Morel win, and the fact that Canelo is clearly avoiding him, which you can understand because Benavidez is an absolute, he's a unit. He's a huge
Yeah.
guy. The winner to fight him, I think, and that would be another big tick in the box. As for moving up to cruiserweight, I think it's kind of the natural next progression. But then you have to look at yourself and say, well, it's not really a glamour division, is it? It's kind of a halfway house between heavyweights, which is the glamour division. So
Mm.
I don't know. It feels like it's something you need to do. I've conquered this division. What else is there for me? Let's move up to cruiserweight. But I don't think there's really anything for him. So unless he was to make a jump and fight a small heavyweight, or even, I don't know, you wouldn't know with Beterbiev. Maybe try and find Usyk, who's a low 200s kind of heavyweight, and try and rekindle that old amateur thing. Stranger things have happened. I mean, we're seeing Crawford about to move up in weight, but something like that possibly. I'd say the natural thing is the Benavidez winner, and then probably sail off into the sunset, because I'm not sure how much more Beterbiev will maybe have one, maybe two more big fights after this, assuming he beats Bivol, I would say. And as for Bivol, again, I don't think moving up is an option for him, really. I'd say he'd probably try and chase Canelo again.
Mm.
I really don't know. I know he talks about boiling himself down to super middle, and it is kind of a bit of a fallacy that we look at Bivol and see him as a small man, but he's actually also doing quite a sizable guy. So I'm not really sure what he would do. But as for Beterbiev, yeah, I don't think he's got long left, and probably Benavidez.
Yeah, yeah, Prime Beterbiev is, I think, he's in his 40s now, so definitely in the latter stages of of his career. Like you said, yeah, obviously he had that ex-rivalry, but I suppose, when I mean, with Beterbiev, if he does win again and he cements himself as the best lightweight heavyweight in the world, surely there's not much else for him to achieve as well. I mean, I guess cruiserweight would just be ticking another box if he becomes, I don't know, two-time cruiserweight champion. Or like you said, the Benavidez fight is, I guess, it's a money fight because Benavidez has got a good following. I'm sure Turkey would pay a lot of money, um, pay a lot of money to see them fight. And Bivol moved on to middleweight. I mean, Canelo, for some reason, he doesn't seem like that. Scared is the wrong word, but he seems willing to fight Bivol again. I suppose when he was in with him, he didn't maybe feel he maybe feel I'll lose, but I won't lose in devastating fashion. So that's something that I guess Bivol Canelo is definitely a possibility. So I mean, personally, I'd like to. I always like it when fighters go up in weight category and win more titles. I don't know. I find I did find it kind of exciting, but let's see what happens. All right, Steve, let's go to the prediction before we move on. I'm gonna start off. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with Bivol. I'm just gonna stick my neck out there. I'm gonna say Bivol makes the adjustments, maybe lets his hands go a little bit, maybe Father Time catches up with Beterbiev a little bit, and Bivol maybe wins a narrow decision. All by yourself.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting, especially given what you said about Turkey as well, because it's going to have an influence, possibly on the judges. I mean, they are human beings. It's something that can't be discounted. I would say I'll go for Beterbiev again, and I think maybe like a split decision or something, or a majority decision. I think it'd be close again, like last time, and quite a similar fight. So I'll say Beterbiev gets it done, and they get their last crescendo, and then who knows where they go after that.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. All right, let's move on to it's almost like a main event in itself, to be fair. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if people are more looking forward to this fight than that Beterbiev Bivol fight, to be fair. Daniel Dubois faces Joseph Parker for the IBF Heavyweight Championship. Dubois obviously coming off a highlight knockout over AJ at Wembley Stadium. Parker coming off two good wins in a row against Wilder and Zhilei Zhang. Yeah, what are your initial thoughts on this one, Steve?
I think it's a funny old sport, isn't it? Because if you look at a guy who's beaten them both, Joe Joyce, he stopped both of these guys, and they're on fighting on what you said is rightly so, is an effective main event out in Saudi, making the big money. And Joyce looks as bad as ever, and he's kind of washed up, and he's going to fight Dillian White, I think, at some point. And it's just funny the way the sports kind of goes in circles, and Joyce never quite got that opportunity, and he has wins, stoppage wins over both of these guys. But I think one of the things that strikes me is it'll be interesting to see how Dubois has evolved since his two losses, because we've seen him in against Jarrell Miller, fantastic fight, stopped him in the last round. Hergovich as well, absolute firefight, took a lot of shots early. Hergovich was clearly in terrible shape. Dubois took full advantage. AJ just came in, no fear of the occasion, no fear of the opponent, got stuck straight into him. They were all excellent wins, but they were all kind of firefights. And if you look at Dubois' two losses, Joe Joyce had a plan, good jab, strong, tall, frustrated Dubois, made him look one dimensional. Usyk again, the absolute master of the plan. I know you got the BS about the low blow and all this going in. I know Frank Warren uses that as a rematch tool, but I don't really count that, to be honest. That was just a small portion of the fight. The majority of the fight, Usyk was bossing it, dropped him at the end, and kind of made him quit. Again, another strategist with an excellent plan. So these are consistent strategy guys. Parker is also a bit of a consistent strategy guy. So let's see in this fight, first of all, has Dubois improved since his two defeats against someone who is going to step off, use the jab, be very regimental, is going to be very disciplined, isn't going to give much away, isn't going to stand there and throw toe to toe with him. Let's see how Dubois has evolved since those two defeats, because Parker's bringing something that Dubois' last three opponents haven't.
That's a very good point, to be fair. But and just to touch on Joe Joyce, I do find that quite sad, to be fair, I'm the Joe Joyce, because I remember, not to go off on a tangent here, but I remember at one point people were saying Joe Joyce was the third best heavyweight on the planet.
Mm.
Behind behind Fury and well, even maybe third or fourth behind Fury, AJ Usyk. He obviously beat Dubois. Then he had another big win. It escapes me at the moment, but whatever the case, Joyce was really on the rise, and then those defeats against Zhang. Um, yeah, obviously he beat
Started
Park.
buying into the chin thing, didn't they? I think that was the
Yeah,
problem. Though. They started making it a promotional thing. This is the guy. You saw the visuals yourself with the kind of zombie face mock up, and this is the guy who just walks through people, and you keep walking through them until you can't walk through them anymore. And Zhang just punched too hard, and he kind of just cracked his chin, didn't
yeah, it was to his demise in the end, I suppose. Yeah, I think people literally thought that Joyce had a granite chin until
they?
Zhang showed everyone no, he does not have a granite chin. No one's hit him properly yet. But let's go back to Dubois Parker. I think you made a great point. I mean, uh, Dubois Dubois, like you said, it has been firefights, and I think especially earlier on, Dubois is really really dangerous. He does come out fast. I mean, against AJ, he was on him straight away. And yeah, I think in the early rounds, Dubois, I think the way I'm looking at this fight, my initial thoughts is if it Dubois Dubois is going to be very dangerous early on, and I think if Parker can
Mhm.
get through those early rounds, it becomes very interesting because Dubois, I'm not going to say he's going to slow down, but naturally he's not going to be as explosive as the fight goes on, and Parker should be able to box a little bit. Parker does have arguably the faster hands. He can box Parker. What's interesting for me in this fight is Parker finally going to kind of reach his potential? Because for me personally, when I've watched Parker, I see a lot of talent there, but so many fights you get left feeling frustrated with Parker. He doesn't let his hands go. He kind of just does enough to win. So the way I'm looking at this could be like, well, I don't know, maybe where all the stars align for Parker. He produces the performance of his career, becomes two-time heavyweight champion, and then maybe that hype from Dubois, and then maybe we see that Dubois is not as dominant as people think when he comes up against, like you said, a strategist. And obviously another thing is that people it's kind of been said that Dubois is overlooking Parker. Do you think that's the case in this fight that Dubois is overlooking Parker a little bit?
I think yeah, he might be, and I think fighters overlook opponents more than they say. It's kind of a sort of settled line, isn't it? I'm not overlooking this guy, but X, Y, and Z. But naturally, he's there running into the ring, trying his best to sort of chat to Usyk after he beat Fury, and they are looking at that, aren't they? Frank's always talking about it. You can take your eye off the ball a little bit. Maybe you just think he's going to walk through someone like Parker. But as you said about Parker, I think he has evolved his style over time, and he's become more conservative because I remember when he was on the way up back it must be about 10 years ago now, maybe even longer, when Sky showed his fight against Carlos Takam before he won the world title. And he kind of was a bit of a buzz, this is maybe a future AJ opponent that was framing it like that. He fought well for the first 6 rounds against Takam, and then he completely ran out of gas, and he was just holding on for the second 6 rounds. He's absolutely knackered, and he's really evolved by fair means or foul, I don't know, but his stamina's definitely improved over the years. And maybe that's like you said, because he's a bit more conservative now, and maybe he boxes within himself, so he doesn't gas out. But I think also, just to counter my previous point against Parker, it depends as well what Dubois brings to the table, because he brings something different from the guys that Parker's beaten, like Zhang, for example. Zhang had the power to hurt Parker, and if Zhang was younger, I mean, I know this, we will say if, but if Zhang was younger and fitter or whatever's going on with him, he clearly had the power once he got inside on Parker to hurt him. He just couldn't sustain anything. Now, I'm not saying that Parker won because of that reason, but I mean, there's mitigating factors. Wilder absolutely shot, just couldn't let his hands go completely. Ruiz back in the day had the bursts, couldn't sustain things for 12 rounds. Parker won a narrow but fair decision. What I'm saying is Dubois brings an energy and a power those guys don't. So can Parker slow him down well enough and for long enough periods to implement his game plan and frustrate Dubois? Because if Parker can't do that early and Dubois gets his second win down the stretch, he's going to be bringing a consistency, like Joe Joyce did with Parker, a consistency of attack that these other guys weren't able to bring. So it depends, like you said, Dubois, if Dubois gets frustrated or he gets his eye jab closed again or something after 8 or 9 rounds, then it's
Mm.
Parker's fight to lose. But if see after those middle rounds, once Dubois gets his second wind, if he's still in it and he has that rush of energy towards the end, then Parker could find himself being overwhelmed. I think so. That it is a really interesting fight. You could see Dan on Saturday night or next week, whatever, and say, yeah, I could see why he won and why he won this way. There's so many outcomes you could foresee.
100%. It's a very interesting fight. I mean, I think it's actually, yeah, it's a great matchup. It really is. It's great matchmaking, to be fair. And it's true, Parker was hurt twice by Zhang, quite badly. I mean, Zhang has these kind of innocuous looking punches, but it's so heavy handed. And Parker was dropped, but fairness that Parker has shown, I think it's fair to say Parker has shown heart throughout his career.
Mm,
Some would say more so than Dubois. I mean, Dubois, obviously, we remember the Joyce situation. I'm obviously not here to criticize Dubois. I mean, I can't even imagine having a broken a broken eye socket and carrying on. So
yeah.
no one, but this is the sport they're in, and I mean, Dubois. I mean, whether it's harsh or not, he did quit. He did kind of quit against Joyce, and he did kind of quit against Usyk. So it'll be interesting to see if Parker can put like enough pressure and, like you said, frustrate him enough to kind of make Dubois kind of doubt himself and kind of want a way out. So
Yeah.
so to speak, if that makes sense.
Or feel sorry for himself at least, even if he doesn't physically quit, mentally take him back to that place.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, Sky Sports again has Dubois has as the favorite. Do you think that's right?
Yeah, I think it's much of a muchness, but I think that's fair.
Yeah, absolutely. And but also with Dubois, I mean, the AJ win's an interesting one as well because obviously that was a brilliant, you know, it was very highlight, wasn't it? Wembley Stadium, record attendance, domination from the first round, amazing knockout. But a lot of people are under the impression that AJ is not what he used to be. Despite the Wallen ring and the little rebuild. Um, so it's interesting because even Dubois beat Miller. And Hergovich, I mean, Hergovich's performance against Dubois has actually aged quite well considering what he uh done to AJ. But anyway, my point is, did the AJ win kind of flatter Dubois a little bit? Um, because AJ is maybe not what he used to be, did that kind of maybe inflate Dubois, I don't know, prowess a little bit?
I think possibly, and I think also the circumstances maybe. Like you said, you got 80 odd thousand, 90,000, whatever it was in Wembley, roaring you on, absolutely buzzing against a guy like AJ who has been vulnerable in the past. And you can get on top of him, and he kind of got into a flow early, Dubois, and the momentum just carried him on. His blood was pumping. He was throwing shots. It was exactly the kind of shot he likes. It's going to be a different kettle of fish next Saturday in Saudi in a broom cupboard atmosphere with a boring guy grabbing you, jabbing you for 4, 5, 6 rounds, and you haven't got that crowd pumping you along. You haven't got the openings that you had. It's a different mentality, isn't it, that you've got to come up with?
No, that's such a good point. That's such a good point. It's gonna be very different. I mean, Saudi for all the great shows they're putting on, the atmosphere is not the same as the UK. Well, anyway, from watching it at home, that's what it seems like. There is, it just doesn't feel the same, that kind of same animosity in there. And yeah, I mean, Parker, I mean, we have to imagine that he's going to spoil a lot. I mean, I think he would be silly not to spoil, especially when Dubois starts letting his hands go.
Mm.
So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's almost a bit of a cagey affair sometimes. I mean, Parker's got to be really, really defensively astute in this fight. And I mean, what I actually like about Dubois is that he doesn't actually overcomplicate things in there. Really, he just comes in there and tries to land bombs. And he's
Yeah,
quite, he's quite good at that. To be fair, he's not. There's nothing too sophisticated. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of subtleties that you know with his boxing that the average person's not going to see on the eye. Um,
yeah,
but generally, he comes forward and he lands bombs. And fair enough, Parker's a bit more technical.
yeah. No, that's a fair assessment. I think that's right.
Let's go on. Let's let's give a little prediction, Steve. So I'll go first. Oh, it's difficult, but I'm actually I don't know. I'm backing the underdogs today. I'm gonna say Parker's gonna win. Not a boring decision on points, maybe a well strategized win on points. Perhaps just maybe staying out of danger enough and maybe just working that jab, landing a few combinations, and just maybe getting a maybe like 116, 112 decision on the scorecards. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I can foresee that as well. I know that the lazy kind of line would be either Parker on points or Dubois by stoppage, but I'm going to go a little bit left field, and I'm going to go for Dubois by a narrow points decision. Funnily enough,
Wow, that is interesting. The bar by narrow decision. Well, I mean, the bar has gone 12 rounds, won 12 rounds against Miller. So yeah, definitely possible. Let's just have a little mention before we finish about the other cards, other fights on the
yeah.
card. Carlos Adames versus Hamza Sheeraz. Let's just quick fire predictions. I'm gonna go for Hamza Sheeraz to beat Carlos Adames. I'm gonna go by knockout.
I am going to say I think this could be a dangerous fight for Sheeraz. This, he's been clipped in the past, and Adames, he's quite athletic and he can punch. He apparently punches like an absolute mule in sparring, I've heard. So I think this is a dangerous fight. I'm going to go for Sheeraz as well. I think he'll stop him late, but I think Adamas is more live and dangerous than people maybe think.
No, no, I agree with that. I agree with that. Vergil Ortiz versus Israil Madrimov. I'm gonna say that Madrimov's gonna be a little bit too technical for Vergil Ortiz, give him too many angles. I'm gonna go for Madrimov on points.
I am going to say that I think this is going to be an absolute banger of a fight. I think this could be the best fight on the card. I'm really looking forward to this. I think Madrimov has little spells where he takes the time off, and
Mhm.
Vergil Ortiz puts it right on you. I think there could be a couple of knockdowns in this one, but ultimately, I'm going to go for Ortiz on points.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. That's interesting. Shakur Stevenson versus Floyd Schofield. I'm gonna back Stevenson here. I think Floyd Schofield is very young, he's got a lot of talent, very explosive. I think Stevenson is just gonna, I'm not gonna say do what he does best, but he's just gonna outbox him. He's gonna outbox him to, I think, a comfortable decision. Maybe a little bit too early for Floyd to get the win here.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see Floyd winning this at all. Yeah, as night follows day, Shakur Stevenson on points is pretty much nailed in. He's just going to outbox him. Schofield's too raw, and he hasn't got the technical nuance to beat Stevenson. I think it's going to be a boring 12 rounds.
He it used to be Canelo on points. That used to be a used to be a
Yeah.
that used to be a really good saying, Canelo on points. You'd get your money back with Canelo on points for sure back in the day. Um, Zhilei Zhang versus Agit Kabayel. Another. I really look forward to that fight. I'm gonna go for Kabayel just because he's just as the fresher man. Maybe has enough lateral movement just to get out of the way of Zhilei Zhang's um, heavy leather. If he escapes the first few rounds, I think Kabayel, in my opinion, is going to win on points. But what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Caballel's excellent. I mean, I know that he doesn't have to box because of his business interests and that, but we're all the better for him in the heavyweight division. He's a heavyweight body puncher as well, which is fun. You don't see too many of them around these days. And I think that's going to be absolute kryptonite for Zhang, who has those kind of stamina issues. He's had renal issues in the past, obviously, when he fought Jerry Forrest. I think Caballel moving, jabbing, hitting into the body is all wrong for Zhang. He's going to give him that constant movement and Caballel on points. And I know this sounds crazy, but I wouldn't even be surprised later on if Zhang is absolutely knackered and Kabayel stops him. But Kabayel just impresses me more and more every time I see him against Frank Sanchez. So patient, brilliant to the body. I think he's an excellent fighter, and he's going to have a title shot soon. I'm going to say Kabayel points or late stoppage.
That's a great point. I mean, Kabayel, he is actually a bit of a different heavyweight. It's true. The body punching, I love his movement and stuff. He's quite fluid. So yeah, I think
Mhm.
Kabayel. It's hard to pick against Kabayel. Joshua Buatsi versus Callum Smith. I mean, I would love to see this headline in the UK, if I'm being honest. But still, whatever the case, they're both gonna get paid great money to appear on this card. I think I'm gonna back Buatsi here. I think he's just a bit more the fresher man. Maybe has I don't know, maybe more. I don't know what the word is. More motivation to win or whatever. he's just more on the rise than Callum Smith at this point. I think I'm gonna go for Boatsy here. Probably probably on points again, to be fair.
Yeah, I agree. Boatsy on points as well. I've been frustrated with these two at various stages of their career. Boatsy's career has just been treading water. He's clearly
Mm.
very talented, but for whatever reason, whether it's decision making or promotional issues, whatever, he just never seemed to step onto that next level. Even when he was on for the Eliminator and then he fought Aziz instead. And I don't know what's going on with him, but he's a talented guy. I thought he would beat Hutchinson as he did. I just don't see Callum Smith winning. I'm not saying Callum Smith isn't good. Callum Smith's been a bit of a letdown for me in his career. I know he's had the big paydays against Canelo and Beterbiev, but I remember when he was on the way up and he was banging people out and they were waxing lyrical about him, and he's just gone missing for long stages. He was WBC #1 for about 3 years, something ridiculous. And just these two, they just frustrate the life out of me, and I think that'll play out in the fight. Buatsi on points for me, same as you.
Fair enough. I mean, Callum Smith, in fairness, when it's all said and done, he did win the Super Six, so that's
Yeah, no, he did, yeah.
something, But I get what you're saying, 100%. He could have done more. I mean, it's not over yet. If he wins on Saturday, who knows? Maybe thrown back into the mix. Um, Last one, Bradley Rio versus Constantino Nanga. Don't know much about either of these guys, if I'm being honest, but I'm gonna back the Brit here, Bradley Rio, by stoppage. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I know that there was a Bradley was complaining last week that the opponents had pulled out and he was worried that he wasn't going to be on the show, but they've managed to get Nanga, I think, to come in as a replacement. But looking at his record earlier, I don't see too much to worry. I'd say yeah, sort of mid to late round stoppage for Bradley Ray.
All right, guys. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you to Steve once again, for giving his thoughts on what's going to be an amazing card. It's one of those cards where we're going to be sitting down for, I don't know, 6, 7 hours straight, depending how much they want to long it out and how much.
Hopefully, would you take 7 hours? No, if they gave it to you, would you take
Seven
that?
hours. Oh, so we start at 3. Well, no, no. If we start at 5, we finish at, I don't know, 1. My maths is not the best, to be fair.
I think I would take 7 hours if they handed it to me now.
I think 7 is, yeah, I think that's decent. That's about 1 hour per fight. So that's not bad. That's not bad. I think I would take that.
Plus
Um,
all the theatrics as well. I think 7 hours.
oh,
I'll take that.
oh, I forgot there's such a big card. There's gonna be I don't know who's gonna perform. Maybe Madonna's gonna come back or something like that, or I don't know. It's gonna be nuts. I mean, that alone is gonna be about half an hour to an hour. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be a marathon, guys. I don't know, stock up on I don't know, your beer, your popcorn, whatever. It's gonna be a marathon, but let's enjoy it. Steve, once again, thank you for joining me. And guys, if you're listening, if you enjoyed this
Yeah.
episode, by all means, comment, like, subscribe, and yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers, guys.